Question number 4, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
This question is to the Minister for Primary Industries and asks, does the Minister believe 2012 amendments to the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act has achieved, and I use the quotes, a stable permanent capital base for the cooperative, secures our future and will support progress with our strategy to grow volumes and value? End of quotes. If so, why?
Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr Speaker, yes, the Dairy Industry Restructuring Amendment Act 2012 set out to ensure that the original Dairy Industry Restructuring Act was fit for purpose and that the contestability of milk supply provides incentives for the New Zealand dairy industry to reach its full potential. That said, we are legislatively required to review DIRA. The review of the legislation will consider the state of competition in dairy markets in New Zealand and whether the pro-competition elements of DIRA are still required. This process begins in June this year.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Is the Minister concerned that a low milk price, instead of generating a higher dividend for farmers, which was the theory behind that legislation, has instead seen Fonterra cut its dividend forecast?
Mr Speaker,
Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr Speaker, right now we're in a very volatile global market. I think the member needs to also remember that last year we had a record payout of $8.40. And right now we're seeing a very volatile global market for a range of reasons. And they are the world is basically awash with milk. We've got milk currently that is displaced from the Russia ban, from the EU looking for a new home. And of course we've got some stockpiling in China. So all of those things mean that right now we are in a very volatile dairy market.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
What can he say to Waikato farmer Dave Robinson, who said the other day, I quote, "I don't believe what Fonterra are saying anymore. The company is not owned by farmers. It's totally lost touch," end of quotes.
Honourable Nathan Guy.
Well, I would disagree with those comments. That farmer has a process to talk through that to the top table. There's a shareholders' council representing farmers. They have a direct linkage to the board of directors. The board of directors are currently on a roadshow addressing all of these concerns with farmers. And I'm hearing a wide range of views that farmers are expressing to the board of directors, and that's the appropriate mechanism for them to do that.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
How does he respond to Waikato University Professor of Agribusiness, Jacqueline Roweth, saying farmers, and I quote her, are questioning whether Fonterra is actually operating as a cooperative anymore, and that's dire, that's abysmal, end of quotes.
Honourable Nathan Guy.
Well, Mr Speaker, that's a question that should be addressed to Fonterra.
Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister consider that the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act passed by himself has indeed achieved its goal and that of his Prime Minister, that is ultimately to set up tension so that Fonterra will be floated on the stock exchange as the Prime Minister stated was his preferred option?
Honourable Nathan Guy.
I refute the allegation from a member. That is completely wrong.
Question number 5, Matt Ducey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.